Lakita Carmack is saying that she hopes everyone is paying attention and understands, and then hashtag 2018, hashtag 2020.
Yeah, I think the best messaging Democrats could have at this point is, A, this is a Trump tax hike, it's a massive tax hike, and B, hey, corporations and old rich people don't get used to these taxes being gone. If Democrats take power again, I think they should move to repeal these Trump taxes. Some of them, some of what they've done in this bill is actually socially beneficial, and we can talk about that after it passes. So some of it maybe you keep, but in general, of the $6 trillion, I would say that they shouldn't get too used to it.
Yeah, can you go through that again? So you quoted, or you recalled that Republicans were saying that the Affordable Care Act was the biggest tax hike in history. And then you kind of broke it down and said, this is actually 4 times bigger than that.
Well, yeah, because the Affordable Care Act, depending on how you count it, raised about $1 trillion in taxes. And they didn't want to go any more than that because they wanted it to be under $1 trillion. And they were stupid about that because it cost them politically. Because as a result of them being stingy, premiums are too high, deductibles are too high, and they had to do a mandate to force people to buy stuff that was crappy. So but they wanted to keep it at around $1 trillion for political and messaging reasons. But it was $1 trillion. This raises $4.5 trillion in revenue. So that if the Republicans want to say that the Affordable Care Act was the biggest tax hike in American history because it raised $1 trillion in revenue, well, I've got one for you here that raises $4.5 trillion in revenue.
So the reason why I was asking you about whether it's mandatory or whether it's likely that Medicare will be cut as a result of this, the reason I was asking is that all these people that got arrested, 36 of them got arrested at the Senate Budget Committee, were all saying, we're here because of health care. They said that it's going to gut Medicaid and Medicare.
Yes, so this is because when a bill like this increases the deficit by $1.5 trillion, there are what are called statutory pay-go rules, which say that you must automatically cut immediately and over the long term Medicare and Medicaid. Now, I talked to several Republican senators this week who take this for what it's worth, but I actually do believe them in this case, who say, I guarantee you we will stave off those cuts. So first, we're going to pass our tax cut, and then we're going to fix this. And Democrats have been asked, Republicans say that they're going to fix these Medicare and Medicaid automatic cuts. Will you vote with them? Because they would need Democratic support to do this. Democrats don't want to say that they will bail Republicans out on this, but there's no way that just to spite Republicans that Democrats are going to go along with, billions in cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. So I do think these are going to be restored, but the fight needs to be on. And long term, Marco Rubio has already let the cat out of the bag, and it was sussed out more in an exchange with Bernie Sanders on the Senate floor that the long term goal here is you reduce tax revenue, and then all of a sudden you've got this big deficit, and people say, oh, look, that deficit's too high, and you say, oh, well, then we better cut spending. And where's the spending? Oh, it's Social Security and Medicare. So now we need to cut that. So that's the long-term play.
Right. The pay-go thing was from 2010.
Yes, this was the idiotic. This was Obama's political nadir, when he decided that he was going to start talking about tightening the belt and worrying about the debt and the deficit. And Steny Hoyer and House Democrats, Pelosi went along with it too, they said people are angry at runaway government spending after the stimulus and the Obamacare, so we're going to pass these pay-go rules. And they did pass them. But that was not what people were angry about. People were angry that they had lost their jobs and their wages were stagnant, and that the economy was reeling out of control, and that no bankers had gone to jail as a result of it. The deficit is a proxy for people for job growth. Like if the economy is booming and jobs are growing, deficit could go to the moon. If the economy stinks, you could have no deficit, and people will tell pollsters that deficit's too high.
from my observation, it's depending on who's in the White House whether they care about deficits.
Well, no, that's Republicans. That's how Republicans see it. But Democrats foolishly bought into the rhetoric in 2010.